Wouldn't it be great if getting a translation could be faster, less expensive, and even enjoyable? I've been invited by ZELENKA, one of Central and Eastern Europe's largest language service providers, to go behind the scenes and see how to do it. I'll be asking the important questions that matter most to anyone who relies on these services, and uncovering little-known tricks that you can start using today to make the whole process a lot easier. In this video, I'm joined by Roger Smith, one of ZELENKA's business development managers. Today, he's going to talk to us about the entire translation process and how communication can make that entire process smoother and much more effective. Thanks for coming, Roger.
Pleasure.
Roger, take us through the translation process. I know from experience that a lot of companies don't really think about the process itself or have much of an idea of the steps involved. Some people kind of joke that they think about a translation company as somebody, you just take them a translation and then magically 3 days later you get the same document back but in a different language. And we both know that there's more involved in that, but take me through the process because I think it's actually pretty interesting.
Well, there's definitely not a lot of magic involved.
Okay, that's one way to go. Yeah.
It's very much a skillful process, but the process itself is quite a lot more complex than a lot of people think. We've got a slide actually that'll sort of depict that a little bit more.
Okay, let's see it.
This is the translation process in sort of a base form. Okay. You know, only a limited number of steps, but it's what happens with those steps that makes it important that we communicate, and it makes it important that we both know, you know, the client and ourselves both know exactly what's going on at every stage. In the very beginning, you're asking us to provide a translation. You contacted us, whether it via email or telephone, and you said, I need this translating into X language, multiple languages, whatever the situation is. At that point, we're going to ask you a lot of questions. Now, those questions are there because we're trying to make that process efficient. We're trying to make that process relatively enjoyable.
Sure. Who doesn't want that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And our key is to gain that information so that we can proceed further.
Okay. So this is the first one, sending the inquiry.
Yeah.
So what's involved there? What happens when I send in an inquiry?
Normally, as I said, you could send an email to us. That could include a file. Okay. What you want translating. It could include a link to a website that you want translating. Okay.
Does that help?
It does help.
Okay.
But it depends on what you send us. Okay. There are multiple types of files, obviously. Whether it be a Word document, a PDF, an Excel sheet. Okay. And each different file type has its own little challenges. Okay.
What type of file is the easiest for you to work with?
The easiest type of file for us to work with is something that's editable. Okay. Okay. That's the easiest and the simplest way to break it down.
What does editable mean?
Something that we can extract the text and we can analyze the text and we can put it through our processes, the magic, as you said earlier on, that produces the end product. Okay. If it's something like a PDF, which looks lovely, it's glossy, it's a beautiful piece of creation that you spent hours, weeks producing, we can't extract that text initially. Okay. That has to take another process. Okay.
So PDFs are not the ideal?
PDFs are not ideal. Okay. They include another process that obviously has a knock-on effect to the cost. Okay. However, we can work with that to base a quote. Okay. We can estimate. Okay. Okay. What we prefer to do is, as I said, take editable formats so that we can utilize those straight away. Everything that you communicate helps you in this process, it helps us in this process. And that is ideally the situation we want to come to. Okay. We want to come to a situation of communication that we're on the same sheet, we're kicking it off on the right foot, and the process goes on from there. So we want to know from you what language combinations you're looking for this to be translated into. Okay. Ideally, we'd like to know a schedule from you. Okay.
Like deadlines and stuff.
Deadlines, when you need this document back by, or ideally, how long you think it's going to take. As I said, when it comes to file types, we need to have as much information there because we need to know how big this document is. We need to have a bit of a background of the company itself. Okay. That always helps. Okay.
How does that help?
That helps because it gives us information as to the subject matter. Okay. It gives us an opportunity to select the right linguist for the job. Okay. So that if it's a marketing text, for example, we're not going to select a medical translator. Sure. And vice versa. We're trying to get as much information from you so the process can move efficiently.
Okay, so let's talk about the specific ways that different, like if I give you this information, here's how it helps this process. I think that's going to help me the most to understand all of this, right? So, so based on what I've told, I'm just going to sum up this first part, what I've heard from you so far. So if I tell you, if when I'm placing my inquiry, if I can give you as much information as possible about it, information that is usually easy to get, right? Like when I need this by, what it's meant for, like the purpose of the text, and how many languages you need it translated into.
Exactly.
Right? Now, what happens in the next step?
Basically, we're going to take every piece of information that you've given us. We're going to put that to our team in-house. We have a good number of project managers who will have their own specialist sort of areas as such. And they're going to take that information and one, analyze the document, but two, analyze the information. Okay, so they're going to look at the document for its size, for its complexity. They're also going to look at the subject matter, and they're going to ensure that they've got the right resources available. For example, if it's a technical document, engineering, we're going to employ engineers to do the translation. They're specialists in their field, so they know exactly how that end document's meant to sound.
But now I'm curious, how does the information that I've given you in step one help with the analysis?
The information you've given us in step one gives us every opportunity to use the best resources we've got, ensure the quality. It ensures us the right amount of time so that we can meet your deadlines. It gives us every opportunity to make sure that the price is right for you. It gives us opportunity to negotiate the best rate.
With the external translators.
With the external translators that we use, engineers who are busy on engineering projects, but we want them for this translation. If we've got all that information, we can book them in advance. And therefore they're available. And therefore we can come back with everything that meets your requirements.
So what's the next step in this?
Next step after all of that, we've taken all of the information, and in-house we're going to formulate a quote for you. We're going to send back the information that we've put all together, and hopefully that matches everything that you've wanted. The next stage is we need to agree that that price is right, we need to agree that the deadline is right, and that we've met your requirements before we take any steps further. We give you the information of how long this is going to take, we give you the information about the price. We know that that's going to be potentially a difficult decision. It's not necessarily yourself that's going to want to decide on this, it's going to be possibly multiple people. We take a little bit of a step back, in essence, and we allow you time to decide and discuss these points. But the communication at this point is important because we need to know that we've got it right.
So this step is the output for this whole first row, right? Yes. And is there anything else to add, or can we move on? Should we move on to the next?
We can move on to the next step.
Okay, so tell me more about this one.
This step here, the Together We Agree step, it's all about communication. Again, we're going to give you an offer, we're going to give you a price, we're going to give you a schedule. And at that point, we need to know from you whether that's agreeable. Now, it could be the case that you throw us a counter offer that you've received from another agency. It could be the case that you had a budget and it's not quite in line with that. It could be a case that the deadline is not quite agreeable. At that point, we really need to decide together and communicate together that that is the final output and we can move forwards.
So even if, like, for instance, if the offer I get from you guys is not in line with my expectations, there's still room to to adjust it.
Potentially.
Right? Through communication.
Through
I have to communicate and let you guys know, and then there's still room to work back and forth.
There's always room to work back and forth as long as the communication is effective. And we have to, as I said, we have to be clear with each other. Even in the first stage where we were asking for as much information as possible, this is very much the same. We need to know as much information from you as possible. We do tailor the quote. So if we agree and the prices are right, the deadlines are right, and we've finalized the negotiation, the next step is for you, as you see there, is to place a purchase order. Confirm it with us. Let us know that that's all agreeable, and we can then move forwards and start the process. We move on to the final stage of this second tier. We can carry out, as it says there, we can carry out the project using our best language experts. Those people that we've discussed with at the second stage here when we're analyzing, those people that we booked and those people that are prepared and ready to make sure that that product is perfect for you. And we take over entire management of that project for you.
So what you're talking about here is basically the translation process, like literally the translation job.
That's it. That's the final part of that tier. And we've handed everything off to the linguist.
Okay, and so is that pretty much that's it, and we should move.
We can move straight down.
Okay,
yeah.
so this is basically where I can influence the style, for instance, of a text, right? Through my input.
You can offer us input about the style. You can change the way in which the document reads. You can basically give us all the direction at this point, so that we produce exactly what you're looking for.
Should I consider this a crucial part of the process, or I mean, can it be left out?
I don't think you can leave this out.
Okay.
This is possibly the most crucial part of the translation process.
Okay.
We've employed the best linguists we possibly can, but without your input, they're not going to produce what you want.
All right. So can you give me some specific examples of like how this kind of input process works then?
Basically, through the process of the translation, the linguists themselves will actually come up with a list of questions.
Okay.
More often than not, anyway, where they have a conflict, a word that could be translated in many ways, or the way in which you wish certain information to be translated or not be translated.
Okay.
And we need to put that information down, or should I say the linguist puts that information down, and he'll send that to us. We act as a bridge in that stage and send that information to you to clarify.
Okay.
That information is invaluable to us.
Okay.
Okay, because that basically has a knock-on effect to the end quality.
Right.
Okay. If you can answer those questions and you give clarification, then it'll only improve the quality of the translation.
Okay. Can you give me an example of what one of these questions could be?
For example, if you talk about the way that you want your company to be named, or how it wants to sound, whether it's with ourselves, for example, a language service provider or a translation agency. The original may be one way, but the end product could be a multiple.
Okay, so basically it's to clarify where, like, and basically kind of define your stylistics.
Clarify the information, define the style, and that then can move forwards in the glossaries that we create to ensure that we do that throughout your translations for the future.
Oh, so you actually like save this information so that I don't have to keep answering the same questions from these linguists.
Basically, yeah. The information that you give us, the information that you clarify, we put into glossaries, we save that, and that then can move forwards to the next translation.
Okay.
And we apply those rules to the next translation and into the future.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so if you don't have anything to add, move on to the next step?
Please do.
Okay, so if I've ordered something, this is where I finally see the translation.
You get to see the end product.
All right, so is there anything to add here?
There's not a great deal to add at this point. We're going to deliver the end product to you, in the format that you've requested.
Right.
Hopefully everything's in line with what you've desired, and we're not going to rub our hands clean of this though.
No, okay, because I think that goes on to the next. That's for the next step.
The next step.
Right. Okay, so let's move on to that one.
Basically, it's exactly what it says. We look forward to the feedback.
Okay.
Hopefully, at that stage, we can, we've delivered your translation. Everything's perfect and wonderful, and you think it's great. And we can pop the champagne corks and go home. But in reality, that doesn't happen. There's always going to be something that needs to be changed.
Okay.
You can have a different preference. There's going to be something that wasn't picked up in the original issues with the terminology.
Right. But because then that kind of makes sense, because at this stage, the first time we go through this stage, the questions are coming from the linguists themselves, so that's only what they're aware of.
It's only what they're aware of and only what they've highlighted. If you get the final project back and there's something you realize that's not quite right, we take it back to that.
Okay. So and then again, so we kind of repeat
we rinse and repeat on the process, and we're quite happy to do that. Take it back, we'll look back at the terminology, we'll actually input any new terminology back into the glossaries.
Okay, so again, all of this input gets saved.
It's a circulation.
Okay.
But our ideal at the end is to ensure that the product is absolutely right for you.
So this feedback process also seems really valuable, especially for the glossaries and kind of improving translations, like future translations.
Indeed.
Okay, so is there an expiration date to that, or is there a point that I frankly can't come back and work on this?
No, to put it very simply to you. We actually have, and as far as I'm aware, we're one of the only companies in the industry that do this, a lifetime warranty on our translations.
Oh wow! Okay.
So if at any point, whether it's 5 minutes after we've delivered it or 5 years after we've delivered it, there's an issue that you want something to polish up, you want to sharpen something up and make it slightly different, we're quite happy to go back we go back to the original translation, we go back to the glossaries, we update those things, and we make sure that everything's right for you.
Okay, that's fantastic. Just to recap what I've heard today, just to make sure I understand it correctly, clearly there are a lot more steps in the translation process than most people probably realize. But one thing I heard consistently from you was that communication plays a really large, like a huge role in making each one of those steps more effective.
Indeed.
Right? And all of it, of course, leads to a better quality product. And that so the more I invest as a client into the communication with you, the more naturally the better my translation is going to come out, is what I'm understanding.
Yes.
Okay. And then of course that what I really found interesting was that you're committed to the quality of that translation, and without any sort of expiration date, that you will never stop being committed to that, which I thought was really cool. So is there anything else that you add to that, or?
The only thing I'd add to that is carrying on with what you're just saying about our investment, and that is that we want to create partnerships with our clients.
Okay.
We don't want to just be another translation agency. We want long-term partnerships, and we want to ensure quality. Some of our most satisfied clients, for example, when it comes down to the first step, they're not talking about an initial inquiry, they're not talking about straight off, they actually plan with us. Sometimes a couple of months in advance, sometimes even a year in advance, and we work with them to create their schedules so that we can ensure that we've got the right people and ensure the right quality in the end.
All right. Okay, so I guess that's probably everything for that today. Thank you, Roger, for coming and sitting with me. If anyone has any questions, feel free to get in touch with Roger. We're going to put his contact information below this video.